The Financial Secretary Phone-In with Jim Gould and Janice Wong. Call us on 233-88266.
Good morning and welcome to this special phone-in program with the Financial Secretary, Paul Chan. Mr. Chan, good morning and thanks very much for joining.
Good morning, Mr. Chan.
Good morning, Janice.
We're live on RTHK TV 31 and 32 on Radio 3, and you can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Jim Gould and Janice Wong is co-presenter. And Mr. Chan is going to be with us for the next hour to listen to your comments and take your calls.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Just remind the viewers and listeners, the number again is 233-88-266. Feel free to call and please try to get your call in early, and that way you'll have a better chance of getting to speak to the FS directly. Mr. Chan, so a budget for recovery, obviously, after several very difficult years.
Yes.
You also emphasize the need for high-quality development, talking about things like the green economy, green finance, green technology, turning Hong Kong into an international hub for that, third-generation internet, digital development. Is this the way forward for us economically, do you think?
Well, you know, under the 14th five-year plan of the nation, we have been given 8 centers and directions for growing our economy. But when you look at the global trend, I think digital economy is evolving and very quickly. And the way I see it is that digitalization is a very important tool, not just in itself as an industry, but also cut across different sectors to enhance their competitiveness and even transforming their business model. So digital economy, digitalization is something that we have to embrace. And then moving to innovation and technology, the third generation internet, Web3 is also transforming the world. And under that, say for example, virtual assets is also developing very fast. Despite the recent, say for example, collapse of some of the exchanges, but the underlying technology, the blockchain, the distributed ledger is still there and still valid. And the advantage of Web3 is that it is a decentralized platform, low cost, very transparent, so it would be very conducive for innovation. And it also, because of the transparency and with security, of course, it becomes a very good platform for co-sharing information as well as technology breakthrough. So this is going to transform us in the years to come. So we think this is something we have also to adopt. And then green, despite different political beliefs, the whole world is moving towards that. And we are in a very good position, not just in terms of green finance, but also in terms of green tech. Say, for example, in the science park, we have about 60 companies in this particular area. And also in Cyberport, they have also a lot of startups in smart living. So by integrating these two, I think we would position ourselves as one of the leaders globally.
All right, Mr. Chan, I think we have our first caller on the line, and it's Jim. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. What would you like to ask Mr. Chan?
Yeah, good morning, Secretary Chan. So my comment and question is on your Happy Hong Kong campaign.
Yeah.
Now, if the government really wants to make Hong Kongers happy again, why not give them control over their lives again by allowing them to choose to wear masks or not? You know, 2 points is, first, it's free, so, you know, it won't cost the government a cent, and it'll be a lot cheaper than organizing food festivals and other events. And second, we've already seen in other places like Japan that many people will choose to continue to wear masks even without a mandate. You know, how can we boost tourism if we're still asking all of these people that we're going to invite to come over in March and have them wear masks? Are we going to have to spend money by providing masks for them on arrival? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I can see your point about masks, where to take off the mask. This is still, this policy is still there on health grounds. And well, my colleagues in the Health Bureau have been given very clear message as to the community aspiration to take off the mask as quickly as possible. This is high on their agenda. But I would also say that despite all this, it is also very important for us after these 3 difficult years, not just to attract foreign tourists and business visitors to Hong Kong, but organize more activities for people to enjoy and for people to spend time together with their families. So apart from the government organizing the activities in different districts, we have the support of non-government organizations, say for example the Ocean Park, Disneyland, as well as the West Kowloon Cultural District, the Science Park and the Cyberport, to stage different events for the Hong Kong people to bring their families together to have a good time at their respective venue.
As you know, Mr. Chan, there's a great deal of talk about face masks. I mean, would you be able to give us any indication of when the mask mandate might be relaxed?
Probably in towards the end of this season. Yeah, but of course, my health colleague is monitoring this very closely.
Of course, yeah.
And from time to time, even during the budget consultation, we have received similar views, and the sentiments I do understand.
Okay. We have another caller on the line. Mario, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mario.
What's your question for the Financial Secretary?
I want to ask him, when do we have the half bonus for Social Security recipients? And I hope it will be as quick as possible because we really need the money. Would you please tell him my question, sir?
So you can actually put your question directly to the Financial Secretary. He's listening to you.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you. This can be effected as soon as the Legislature approve the budget. So as with past year, this will go with the normal routine monthly payment on the basis of our database.
Mr. Chan, we need the money will be very, very useful to us. Please, as quick as possible, and thank you in advance.
Thank you. We will do our best.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mario.
Bye, Mario. And Mr. Chan, I just want to, before we get another caller, I just want to go back to what you were talking about earlier about IT development, AI development. I mean, it's quite clear you're putting a lot of emphasis on these areas with the aim of maybe making Hong Kong into an international IT hub. So when do you think that will actually happen?
Well, you know, Hong Kong has our own development history. And the involvement of Hong Kong into an international financial center is very much following closely the development on the mainland and using our unique advantages to serve them. And at the same time, we achieve good development. But to an extent, now that our industry structure is too narrow, say, for example, the financial services sector contributing to about 22-23% of the GDP, but at the same time, employing about only 7% of the population. So in order to offer better job opportunities and upward mobility for our people, we do think that we have to diversify our industry. And not just diversification, but also the quality of this development. So innovation and technology is the way to go. Number one, this is globally the trend. Number two, this is transforming everything. In the past 6 years, in previous government, altogether they spent about over 160 billion. And we are able to develop a more vibrant ecosystem. But this is not enough. We think that in order to achieve our policy objective, we need to have more business, a cluster of business in this area so that jobs can be created. So in the policy address of the CE and this budget, we devote resources into attracting enterprises inviting them to come here to set up and attracting talents, because strategic enterprises will bring along talents, and talents in itself, if we are able to develop a pool, we will be able to attract businesses. So this is an interactive process. I think at the moment we are focusing on health tech, as well as AI, robotics. In the coming few years, we will start to see the results. Yeah. After we announce the initiative of setting up an office for attracting strategic enterprises, I think over the past few months we have been approached, and also we proactively reach out over 100 companies already.
All right, and we have another caller on the line, and it's Mike. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What would you like to ask?
Well, I listened to a discussion, and it was two very prominent climate experts, and they were asked a question: how much money is it going to take to reach our green goals by 2050? And they didn't $50 trillion. Then the next question was, how much is that going to lower the Earth's temperature? Again, they didn't know. Another volcanic eruption, or if the sun flares. And my question to you is, how much money are we going to spend in the green, going down that green rabbit hole?
Well, in the rough estimate, in the next 20 years, we need to spend at least on a constant price basis over $260 billion on the various programs.
What's our goal?
But please let me finish. Oh, our goal is by 2050 zero emission, and by 2035 cutting our emission half from the peak at 2005. And the way I see it, moving this direction is not just government money. We need to make good use of the capital in the private market. And moving to a green economy, fighting the climate challenge, is not just expenditure, it is an investment, and this investment can produce good returns. That's why we think we should be in a position to facilitate and lead some of the private sector capital towards this direction.
This is a goal, but at what cost to everybody involved? And I don't know if the goal is even reachable, because the experts, the climate experts, they didn't know whether or not the goal was reachable because there were so many variables.
There are so many variables, but what we can do is to have a goal, set up our strategic direction, and set up our action plan, and do our best in the circumstances, and from time to time taking into consideration the change in circumstances as well as the breakthrough in technology to try to enhance our own work.
Okay.
Okay, I don't want to take any more time, but that was the other question. Those experts said, we don't have the technology. We hope that we're going to have the technology later so that we can have our goals. So,
well, globally, fighting climate challenge is a common agenda. So the technology involvement, no matter it happens in the US or Europe or on the mainland, Hong Kong being an open international city, we can always bring this over. And ourselves, in our research centers, we have been doing our part.
Okay, thank you for your call, Mike. You're watching and listening to this special phone-in program with the Financial Secretary, Paul Chan. The number again, 233 88 266. Feel free to call. Mr. Chan, could I just ask you about your growth figure projections? So So for this year,
for this year
3.5 to 5.5%.
Yeah, for this year is 3.5 to 5.5, and in the medium term, meaning the next 4 years, the trend growth we estimate to be 3.7%, which is slightly higher than the previous 5 years, on the basis that after the 3 years difficulty and recession, now globally the external situation is, although still a little challenging, geopolitics, the depressed economic situations in Europe, but the high interest rate environment is approaching the peak. And after difficult years, the US and Europe will revert back to their long-term growth trend. That is one. Developing Asia is growing very fast going forward, as well as in the past few years, despite the challenging external situations. Mainland economy is coming out from a slower growth 2020, is moving on a much better, much sustained, improved economic recovery. So we think this year the target is very much achievable, and next year we still have catch-up growth. And with the government's intensive investment and attracting strategic enterprises to come, during our transformation towards a higher quality development, I think it is pretty optimistic that we can achieve the medium-term growth of 3.7%. Yeah.
All right, and maybe staying with the economy, or let's look at the government's financial situation. Of course, we've got a higher than expected deficit and a shrinking fiscal reserve. And of course, you've come up with infrastructure and green bonds to help generate more capital. But what about the need to widen our tax base? I mean, how urgent do you think that is?
Well, we have very carefully examined this. Number one, on the existing tax sources of tax revenue, can we increase it? Number two, what is coming in the pipeline? And number three, apart from all this, where are the room for increasing the revenue? On the existing salaries tax and profits tax, although we have devised different schemes to increase the collections, but we do think that over the past 3 years, it has been quite difficult for many. Perhaps this year we should allow people to have more breathing space. And we still have a healthy reserve to sustain us. So this year, no change to salaries tax, profits tax. And we will review it next year. And on what is coming up, we are going to introduce global minimum tax requirement in Hong Kong, and there will be a top-up tax of about 15 billion from 2025. This is what is coming. And in the meantime, to increase our revenue but limiting its impact, we look at betting duty. So we increased 24 billion betting duties from football, from the Jockey Club. And as to the other schemes which have been put to us, say for example, GST or capital gains tax, we do have internal examination, but we need to find a good timing for the community to have an informed debate so that we can have a better consensus as to the way forward. I think this is not the best time to introduce. Over the past few years, it has been quite difficult. Coming year, concentrate on recovering our economy, growing our economy. So we put this on hold for the moment.
Okay, have another caller on the line.
Yeah,
Warwick.
sure.
Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Morning.
Warren.
I'm very pleased to see in the budget yesterday all the help that the government is giving for boosting tourism into Hong Kong. I think we'll be pleased to see the return of it. Imagine, though, if you will, that you and your family are traveling from and looking at various locations in Asia. Would you personally choose a country with a mask mandate to take your family to against one that doesn't?
I can see your point, but as you know, at the moment, it is very much on health ground. And like you, we want to see the mask to be taken off as quickly as possible. And this message is very clear to the government, and our colleagues in the health department has been keeping this in close view.
All right, so we have another caller, Mr. Chan. Thank you, Eric. The next caller is Neil. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Mr. Chan.
Good morning.
Well, one thing I would like to say is that since the new government has come in and taking control of things, there have been significant improvements in the confidence levels, I think, generally within the local population. So thank you very much for that. I think there's a massive improvement.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words.
I don't want to be sort of reiterating too many things, but you are trying to encourage outside people to come in.
Yep.
Part of this big marketing push is that we are a leading international centre. But it's very difficult to tell people and persuade people that we are a leading international centre when we are the last people on the planet to remove masks. And I think I'm probably the third caller this morning that's...
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah.
This is perhaps something that you may not be able to answer, but what is it that our medical people know that the rest of the planet, we are the last country on the planet, and if you want to be a leading financial center, a leading business center, you can't be the last person to do things. You have to be the first people to do things. This is coming from someone. I supported the mask mandate when it was brought in through the serious part of COVID, but now we seem to be using the mask mandate to cover seasonal flu. You're fighting against yourself. The government is fighting against itself. If you want to promote this country, this territory as a leading place, you can't be the last to do things. So that's my point for today.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I heard you very clear. This will be brought back to the government for a proper discussion, proper debate. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, can I just pick up on something tax-related that we were talking about just now? So the concessions in the budget. So income tax up to $6,000 off the tax bill this time around. Last time was $10,000. Is this going to be a gradual reduction? Are we going to get to the stage, do you think, when the economy is doing well enough that there won't be any more annual tax concessions?
Yeah, I do understand the sentiment about reducing this tax relief, but I do appeal for your understanding that, over these 5 years, we have 4 years in deficit. And the year before last was over 33 billion, and this year over 140 billion. I mean, the year before last is over 230 billion. So in the circumstances, we have to be applying extra care in terms of offering concessions. And, this time round, at the reduced level, the concessions altogether, salaries tax and profits tax combined, as well as other short-term relief light rates, cost us about $59 billion. So we have to be careful. I will keep this in view, keep an open mind, see what may be done next year. There are also appeals from the different quarters of the community about reviewing the personal allowances, the other deductions. So we will take this into considerations in one go next year.
Yeah. None of the callers so far have mentioned the consumption vouchers either, which is always a popular topic with budgets, with recent budgets. Of course, $5,000 per person this time around, compared with $10,000 last time. I mean, the consumption vouchers are clearly a special measure to deal with the economic situation. Is that something else that's likely to just sort of disappear completely in the future?
Well, this won't be regularized as a routine measure by the government, because financially it is simply not sustainable. Even at $5,000, it will cost us about $33 billion. But this year, although the economy is recovering, but it could be very fragile, mainly because of external situations. Hong Kong being a small open economy, whatever happened externally would affect us. So we think we should reinforce the recovery. And at the same time, after 3 years' difficulty, some of the members in the community are still in a pretty stressful situation. So hopefully this $5,000 will help. We'll keep this under review, but this is not going to be a routine measure.
Okay. We have another caller, Kim. We've got to take a break in about a minute and a half for a news summary, but would you like to get your question in quickly, Kim?
Sure.
Hi,
good
Kim.
morning. Hi there.
Good morning.
Sorry if I'm a bit out of breath. I'm enjoying a moss-free hike.
Oh.
Anyway, my question is, obviously because of our strict COVID rules, a lot of people haven't come back to Hong Kong within that 3-year period where, you will lose your PR. Considering the circumstances, is there any chance the government would make an exception and let those who've had PR that have expired in the past, 18 months, 2 years, whatever, to come back and get it? Because that'll obviously, it could encourage people to come back. I mean, I'm very positive about Hong Kong now, so, they might want to come back, but they can't because they haven't made it back in the last 36 months. That's my question.
Okay. Mr. Chan, could I ask you to hold on to your answer? Because, as I say, thanks very much for your call, by the way, Kim. We'll get Mr. Chan to answer your question when we come back, because, as mentioned, we do have to take a break for the news summary at 9 o'clock. We'll be back at 3 minutes past. Stay with us.
The Financial Secretary Phone-In with Jim Gould and Janice Wong. Call us on 233-88266.
And welcome back to this special phone-in program with the Financial Secretary, Paul Chan. We're live on RTHK TV 31 and 32 and Radio 3. We had a caller just before the news break. Kim was, I think Kim, we still have you on the line. Did you get your breath back after your hike?
Out there, so but yes, I'm good.
Okay, so could you just remind us again about the thrust of your questions?
Sure. I'm assuming the government hasn't considered it, otherwise they may have mentioned it, but would the government consider extending and allowing grace periods for those whose permanent residency has expired in the past, be it a year or 2 years or the 3 years limit? Because that could be very positive for people wanting to return. And I just was hoping they might consider it, that's all. I mean, I'm a permanent resident, so it makes no difference to me, but I have lots of friends who do want to come back, but, they haven't been able to.
Yeah, we would be happy to look into it. Yeah, because of COVID, people may not be able to come in the past few years. And because of that, their status has been lapsed. Certainly, we can look into that.
So how would they go about, though? Because obviously, if they contact the immigration department now, it's a blanket kind of like you haven't been here 36 months, so no go, right? So there needs to be some kind of channel or information. If you could look into it and somehow publish it or announce it, I think you'll find quite a positive response.
Yeah. After we look at it and having an outcome, of course, we will announce it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. And we have another caller on the line, and it's Krishan. Good morning, Krishan.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Krishan.
Mr. Secretary, I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
Number one, the size of the government is growing. I believe it is 30% of the total budget, the government spending. So where is it going to stop? Is there a ceiling? That's number one. Number two, you will agree that Hong Kong has the most simple of tax regimes, lowest of tax rates. But still there is quite a bit of tax evasion. So what mechanism you have to make sure that the government doesn't lose any tax because people are understating their income, especially SMEs?
Well, over the past few years, because of COVID, government expenditure did have increased quite significantly. Say, for example, this year, the revised estimates for 2022-23, government expenditure as a percentage of GDP is about 28%. But in the budget, in our medium long-range plan, I think you will realize government expenditure, although on a nominal basis increased, but it will be increased in a much slower pace, slower than the economic growth. And the percentage of government expenditure to GDP will come down to about 22-23% by the year 2027 and 28. So we are fully aware of the situation. And I think Jim knows that we have kept civil service establishment at zero growth this year, and this will continue the same next year. We try to contain the growth in the size of the civil service and ask the different departments to look at their expenditures to try to reprioritize it and mobilize resources to undertake new initiatives. And with the COVID going away, there will be also substantial reduction in health expenditure. As to tax evasion, the Inland Revenue has a unit, Unit 4, specially responsible for tax investigations and collecting back duty from taxpayers. The amount collected is in $1 billion last year and before.
Okay, thank you. Another caller on the line now, Mr. Jiang. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, but I have to special question.
Yep,
because during this COVID pandemic, we suffer all of them. But I just don't understand because even the last year in the fifth wave pandemic, we can't play football, we can't play basketball, even any sports class, maybe the testing station or even the vaccination center. But why the Jockey Cup can still horse racing? So I heard this because Regina, if the executive Karina said that a few weeks ago, they suggested that the Jockey Club should pay more football betting duty. Oh, many of them think, oh, is it a joke? You don't betting football. How come you comment on the football betting duty? But on your Paul Chan this financial budget, you really did it. You need Jockey Club pay each year for 5 years for 4 billion. Oh, I think it's true because the Jockey Club have many benefits for many times. We can't play football, but we have still horse racing. There's no any horse racing canceled for every single time during any pandemic since the COVID pandemic began. So they think the Jockey Cup is a VIP. Okay, they have special arrangement, so we can't play football, but they have horse racing. You see, our play football is a second class. Horse racing is a VIP. Do you think so?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe Ms. Zhang, I don't know you are aware of it or not. During the COVID period, although there are horse racing, but without public audience. Yeah, so Jockey Club is trying to find a way to operate under the extreme conditions. This is number one. Number two, we levy Jockey Club 2.4 billion annually for the next 5 years on football, on their football income, having taken into consideration the larger amount of gross profit from football than horse racing, and also taking into consideration the overall financial strength of the Jockey Club. So in the short term, when the government need to raise additional money for the public, we do think it is appropriate for us to ask the club, who can afford this payment, to pay to the government $12 billion in the next 5 years. Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Chen, how did you, just following up on that, how did you come up with that figure, 2.4 billion?
You know, 2.4 billion a year, almost equivalent to about increasing the betting duty for football from 50% to about 62%. This is number one. Number one, the gross taking of the Jockey Club from football as compared to horse racing is more or less the same. Football is on the increase, on the faster pace of increase. So on a gross taking basis, football is bigger. And on a gross profit basis, football is about 2 times of horse racing. So we take this 2.4 billion from football, it is still profitable, and the overall eventual financial result of the club, by looking at the past 5 years, would still be in a positive balance. And the club made a significant investment income the year before last because of good global situations, good investment environment. So they can afford it. And we have asked them not to reduce any support to the charitable sector, and they have agreed to that.
Okay, you're watching and listening to this special phone-in program with the Financial Secretary, Paul Chan. The number again, 233 266. Please keep the calls coming. Just while we're waiting for our next caller, Mr. Chan, I wonder if we could turn to the property sector for a moment. Because one of the measures, you're adjusting the ad valorem stamp duty for first-time buyers for properties roughly up to small and medium-sized places up to 10 million in value. However, the the cooling measures which were introduced about 10 years ago remain in place.
Yep.
That's despite a decline in home values of about 15% last year. I mean, a lot of homeowners, which account for about 50% of the population, might start feeling a little bit nervous about the property market. Is there anything you can say by way of reassurance?
Yeah. Well, you know, last year the property market adjusted orderly by about 15.6%. I said it is an orderly adjustment because it is a small decrease every month. And the volume has come down significantly. Last year, the total residential property transaction was about 45,000 as compared to the year before. The year before was 75,000. And if we look further back from 2013 to 2020, that 8 years, the transaction was always stay at the level of about 60,000. So last year, price coming down, volume is low. It is because, number one, interest rate is on the increase and haven't finished yet. Economic situation is challenging. And when people look at this, they became more cautious in terms of their buying decisions. And the property market start to stabilize at the moment. If I may give you an example, in December, the total transaction is only 2,000 plus. But this month, last month, January, was about over 3,000, increased quite a bit. So, and the price is stabilizing, and in recent weeks, start to come a little bit. So when we do think that the market is stabilizing, and with improved economic situation and with the interest rate hike towards the end, it would provide more certainty to people in considering whether to make their buying decision because things are stabilizing. The demand side measures, the cooling measures, the objective, the policy objective is to allow first-time home buyers, Hong Kong permanent resident, have the priority to buy their home if they want. Last year, out of the 45,000 transactions, 90% were first-time Hong Kong home buyers. So, and I also look at the demand and supply of private residential units. It is still a bit tight. So there is justification for us not to touch the demand side measures. But at the same time, I'm sensitive to the needs of those first-time home buyers to reduce their transaction costs. Because out of the 90% first-time home buyers, the bulk majority are buying small size properties. That's why we adjust the ad valorem duty for property up to below 10 million, so that people can save between $30,000 to $60,000. And this money could be used by them to buy some electrical appliances or help with some decoration. I think, well, that is our aim. Yeah.
All right. You're listening to the Financial Secretary's phone in right now. And if you have any questions, you can call in. Our number is 233-88266. And we have another caller on the line, and it's Judith. Good morning, Judith.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is
Good
Judith.
morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning,
it's Judith
Judith.
Mackay speaking. A very different phone call from the last many years where I phoned in and been very unhappy about the lack of increase in tobacco tax. And this year it has gone up, and it's gone up quite significantly. So I'm phoning in to say thank you and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Judith.
Yes, and just to point out to listeners that tobacco tax is the most effective thing in preventing youth smoking, as you said in the press release about the budget. So it surprises people. They think things like health education in schools should bring down youth smoking, but it is tobacco tax, and I think I'm really happy that this has been recognized. And what it will do is prevent young people from starting smoking, and it will encourage smokers, particularly poor smokers, to make a decision in their best interests and quit. So I think my question really is for the future, because we are not yet up to the 75% that WHO recommends that should be the percentage of tax of the retail price. So I think I would just really like to ask you to consider in the future raising tobacco tax a minimum cost of living increase in the future, and also increasing it even further. And I wonder if there's any good news on the horizon about that.
Judith, we keep this in view because we are conscious of the fact that even with this 30% increase in tobacco duty, we are still below the World Organization's guideline. And our policy objective is, as you said, we want to reduce the cigarette smoking population, particularly among our young generation. But when increasing this tax, we are also conscious of the impact on people, particularly those elderly grassroots citizens. So I will keep this in view and see what could be done further to achieve that objective. But I think we do need to do this carefully so that we would have broader support from the community.
Well, you certainly have the support of the public health community in this regard, and the support of the Council of Smoking and Health, Clear the Air. You know, most people in public health would really, really strongly advocate that you keep bearing this in mind in the future. But thank you again for this year, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Judith.
Thank you, Judith. We have another caller, Shalini.
Yeah, hi, good morning,
Secretary.
Hello, Shalini.
Hi. Thanks for coming on the call and giving us all the opportunity to ask some questions. So it's really, again, regarding the tax regime in Hong Kong and the cooling measures for the property sector. So, you know, thanks again for what you're doing regarding first-time owners. But, you know, I've been a professional now for over 30 years in Hong Kong, and obviously I'm still finding property prices very, very expensive. And I guess my question is, I've got two questions, which is one, why are you not really considering, having a vacant tax, vacant property tax on individuals? It just appears that there are a lot of vacant properties in Hong Kong, and we have a lot of wealthy real estate owners that are just simply not taxed and just holding on to their properties. And secondly, my other question is, this is where I sort of find the tax regime in Hong Kong a little regressive, is why are you not providing some allowances for, let's say mortgage payments, interest on mortgage payments, so that it's tax deductible? And secondly, perhaps for those of individuals that really sit in high income tax buckets that earn a lot of dividend income, some kind of dividend income tax too. So these are sort of questions I pose to you this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sharoni. Well, on vacancy tax, we have looked at the vacancy rate. At the moment, it is still pretty low. So for average citizen, I think levying a vacancy tax may not be very productive towards our policy objective, but creating nuisance to them, because when the landlord want to lease out property, there may be in some period that it will be left vacant for a short time. As to mortgage, we are reviewing our rating system, and we are doing some internal infrastructure preparation. The aim is towards the end of this year, we will be able to introduce a more refined rating system, and by that time, luxurious properties may be levied at a higher rate. That is levying rates on affordability basis. Mortgage interest deduction at the moment, it is allowable to the extent of $100,000 in salary tax and personal assessment. Tax on dividend is a complicated subject in the sense that this amounts to tax on unearned income or capital gains. This is something internally we have looked at, but it cannot be looked at in isolation. We have to look at it with the sight of also the other passive income as well as capital gains. This is on this is one of the options from time to time we look at. But at the moment, Hong Kong, one of our key competitive advantage is simple low tax regime. At the moment, we are trying to attract enterprises and talents to come. We perhaps at this stage need to avoid sending contradictory messages.
I fully appreciate that, and I'm not advocating higher taxes or corporate taxes, but it just seems that this bucket of, I would say, professionals in Hong Kong seem to be hardest hit because they seem to pay a lot of tax on income tax, but really, really wealthy individuals that make a lot of dividend income, they're not really taxed. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think there is a little bit of a sense that this is a regressive tax regime. Mm. So it's just wanted to draw your attention to it. But thank you for your answers.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. And we try to fit another caller in, and it's Carlos. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning.
Yeah, Carlos. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary. My question is about consumption vouchers.
Yeah.
My wife, a permanent resident, just returned to Hong Kong after being away for almost 3 years in view of the pandemic. My question is, the government website says that she's way past the deadline. But could she still avail herself of the voucher? Can she still register? Thank you.
Yeah, kind of depending on where we cut the line as to eligibility. If she are in Hong Kong before that, she will be eligible. If not, then I'm afraid she won't be. So depending on the cut-off line to be announced later.
So a new deadline will be announced later.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Secretary.
Thank you.
More power.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your call. Now we have on the line with us Nitin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sure, Nitin, yeah.
Hi, good morning, Financial Secretary. I just wanted to ask about the betting duty. I know that you're putting on extra betting, charging the Jockey Club more on the football. Yeah. But instead of doing these one-off measures of 5 years of 2.4 billion, why not allow them to expand their betting angles? So instead of just being football, why not do it more sports? We're losing a lot of revenue on the fact that people are using overseas bookmakers and illegal bookmakers. Surely this will capture more of the money and provide a much wider tax base for you and provide ongoing income further than the 5 years. Did you actually consider allowing them to do that?
Well, this has been something we have looked at, but, this is something in the community highly controversial. Whether we should expand the gambling or the gambling activities. As a government, we do not want to encourage that, although that would bring us additional revenue. That is also the reason why a couple of years ago, when people suggested us to allow casinos to be open in Hong Kong, we decided not to. Yeah, it is something to do with our values and beliefs.
All right, and we have a final caller, and it says Stuart. Maybe Stuart, can you keep it brief?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, good morning, Stuart.
Good morning, Paul. I wanted to talk about consumption vouchers as well, because this is the third time that you've brought them out. 5,000 first time, 10,000 second time, 5,000 the third time. Clearly, you would regard them as a successful way in which to get people to spend. So I've got two questions. One, does the government do a detailed audit of the take-up of these vouchers? And if so, would it be publishing that audit so we get some idea of how many people are actually doing it? But and secondly, more importantly, did you personally take up a voucher, and do you know whether the chief executive has also taken up his own consumption vouchers?
Well, judging from the amount spent on consumption voucher, as a percentage of our initial allocation, the take-up rate is over 90%. Yeah, well over 90%. Well, myself, the CE, and the colleagues, the political appointed officials, I encourage them all to take up this voucher and spend more than the vouchers, and also encourage them to use this money to, say, for example, buy things for others, inviting colleagues to lunch, or even donating to charity. So, but do take it up. Yeah, thank you.
Because the purpose of the consumption vouchers is to stimulate the economy.
Consumption,
yeah. Also, there's also, of course, a feel-good factor involved with it as well. Adds to the sort of happiness of the
particularly in the past few years when we are almost closed off to the outside world. That indeed help with our domestic consumption, and with this little extra money, people are more willing to spend and spend with their family and friends, and well, it is, I would say, a happy experience. About 60+% spent on retail, about 25% on F&B.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chan, for taking part in our phone-in this morning. You've been
thank you, Janice.
Listening to the special phone-in program with the Financial Secretary, Paul Chan.